Good morning everyone, and how are you doing today? Fernando, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Hopefully well. Every now and then we have a car come in that allows us to answer a question that you guys ask us all the time. Today, we have one of these, Toyota Tacoma. And what makes this one special is that it has the rear view mirror with the camera in it. A lot of you guys want to know, how do I move the camera from here into my aftermarket radio? Now, I will tell you this, the camera that Toyota uses sucks. Very low res, not that great. It looks good up in the mirror because the mirror is a tiny screen. Nonetheless, a lot of you guys still want to move it into the radio, and we totally understand. Now for this install, we want to go ahead and move it down into the radio. Customer requested it. What we thought we'd do is take you guys through the steps required. Let's get going. Now the first thing that we want to do is kind of get an idea of what the mirror has for plugs and what we're gonna have to remove. In this case, there's this little hump right here. Go ahead and push down on it, just kind of wiggle it a little bit, and then it'll pop off. Now behind it, you're gonna find this white plug right here. This is gonna have all the stuff in it that we need. This has an auto dim, it's got a power button here. There's a lot of things going on in this. To get more room, we're gonna go ahead and remove the sunglass holder here. Now to do that, that's it. There's one Phillips screw located in the rear sunglass holder. Just go ahead and pull down on it. On the back side, you'll see there's two metal clips that hold it in place, as well as two white clips that need to come out. And they're both just for lighting. Now that we've gone ahead and done that, we have a lot more room for this white plug. We can go ahead and fish this through and pull it out. Now looking at it, we have 5 actual wires and then a RCA style and this big brown sheeting here. What they do is they put this black shiny material over it, and you don't want to remove that if you can avoid it. So just kind of push up on the tape to get that out of the way so that it exposes the wire. Now we have in that RCA style, we have 3 wires and a shield. So what we want to do is figure out what all these wires are going to first. The nice thing is once we've got that out, we can plug it back into the mirror and see what it's doing. We're going to need a couple tools for this. For one, we're going to need a digital multimeter, and 2, we're going to need something that has a screen on it that we can actually see. If you use the radio you're putting in, anything, any form of a monitor that has an RCA style input. It helps to have the car on and in reverse so that this is appearing in the screen. We'll go ahead and unplug it. That's going to shut down. Now what we'll find a lot of the times in this mirror is there's a couple powers, there's some reverse, and of course there's the output that actually feeds the camera, because a lot of the times the mirrors are feeding the camera. We'll take our digital multimeter and we'll set it to DC voltage, which is this guy right here, and we'll go ahead and start probing them. Throw one side of your leads, doesn't matter which one, to ground. Go ahead and start probing these wires with our meter to see what is going on inside of these. So we've gone ahead and we have one that gives us 12 volts. Go ahead and take it out of reverse. It goes away, put it back in reverse, it comes back on. So we know that in this harness, this thin red wire here is our reverse trigger. So go ahead and write that down. Let's keep going here. All right, so this red wire here, this other red wire, there's 3 red wires on here. This other red wire is giving us 12 volts. We'll do the reverse test again and it stays. Go ahead and turn the key off. And it stays, so that's telling us that that's constant 12 volts. Now what we're looking for is something that has 6 volts. 6 volts is what typically powers a Toyota camera, and after probing all of these, none of them are giving us 6 volts. So it's a safe assumption that whatever is going into these 5 wires is what is feeding this mirror and not the camera. Plus, we know that there's these 4 wires. For a camera, you typically need 4 wires. A shield for the RCA, the center pin of the RCA, which is the signal, and power and ground. Coincidence? Maybe. We'll go ahead and plug it back in at this point. We have our image. Now what we want to do at this point is try to find that 6 volts. The shield we know is a shield because it's taped up and it's what it is. So we want to try to find the ground first. Naturally, you're going to have a black, red, and a white, and you think, oh, it's a red, red's positive, black's ground, white is God knows what. Don't think that way, because it doesn't mean anything. These are just random colors that Toyota has picked to do things, and I mean random colors. This Toyota is not the same as all the other Toyotas. I know this because we have notes on a lot of these, And I was like, oh, it's the standard 14-pin plug that Toyota uses, no big deal. Grab my notes. No, it's not this. This is totally different. This car is one way, a RAV4 is another way, a Tacoma or a Tundra or Camry, they're all going to be different. The principles for testing them are the same though, so just keep that in mind. And we'll grab the white wire, and we're going to take these are test leads. These go ahead and they have a pin in them, and they're going to pin into that so that we can then take our meter and see what we have. Let's grab the black. We're very lucky at this point. Black in Toyota is typically, believe it or not, positive. I know, it totally goes against everything we're thinking. There again, these are totally random, but looking at all my notes, I see that black is positive in a lot of these mirror applications. So I've gone ahead and taken my red probe, which is positive, attached it to my black, and I've attached my ground side to the white wire. And we have a hit. We have 6 volts. That's good. That's probably what's powering the camera. So that leaves us with the red and the shield. Now just to go back real quick so we know, black is 6 volt positive, white is 6 volt negative. Go ahead and we'll come over to here and we'll grab the red and we'll grab our shield. For this, we're just gonna use our CCTV tester that we have. Plug red into the positive input and shield into the negative input, and there we go. Our camera is on our screen. So those 4 wires are the control wires for this camera. So this is a good point to figure out how we want to run this camera into our radio. There's a couple options depending on what you're looking for. If you want to clone the camera, meaning you want it in the mirror and you want it down in the screen below, all you have to do is add an RCA to the red wire and to the shield, solder that in, which we'll show you in a couple minutes, plug them in, and you'll have camera and mirror, camera on screen. Life is good. The next option is if you just want the screen to be in the unit down below. The reason why you might want to do that is so that all the resolution goes to one monitor instead of being split between 2. Anytime you split a signal, it does split the amount of voltage output over the signal, thus making the signal not as clean. So if you want the most signal going into just one monitor, let's say the bottom one because it's bigger, then you're going to want to disconnect the camera all the way from the mirror. To do that, you're going to need a way to power the camera because the mirror is what's generating the 6 volts to power the camera. For that, you're going to want a pack audio volt 3.9, and what this is designed to do is take 12 volts and convert it over to 6 volts. This will allow you to put all the signal into just one monitor, powering up the camera on its own. Now, the other thing you'll need to do when doing this is cut the reverse wire going into the mirror, because you don't want the mirror to come up with a blue screen every time you put it in reverse. You don't want any of that. So for us, we're gonna go ahead and go the volt 3.9 way and actually power the camera just in the screen in the bottom. Now there's one other thing to keep in mind when you're doing this. Anytime you relocate the factory camera into an aftermarket screen, a lot of the manufacturers use some form of cropping on the factory camera in order to compensate for where they've mounted the camera. And in this case, it's mounted in the handle, which is mounted off center. Anytime you mount the camera off center, it's going to be biased one side or the other. That's fine in a factory application. They can fix that. In the aftermarket, you can't. What's going to happen is, in our case, the camera is going to be to one side and not the other. The nice thing in this, he's got a big silver trailer hitch that shows center point, so I think he'll be okay. Let's go ahead and get up top, and we'll add in our RCA and our volt 3.9. To get our signal from the camera to the radio, we just went ahead and grabbed a female RCA and cut it off. What we want to do is strip some of this back so we have enough to solder into our mirror wiring. Slide the shiny plastic back down to the end of the plug where we moved it from. Next, you're going to want to remove part of this shielding, about 1.25 inches of it. You don't want to put the connection down here where it could possibly be seen or make this a big bulge out in the open. We want to put it up into the headliner where it's nice and out of the way. Next, we want to strip back the red wire so that we can solder in our center pin of the RCA like this, as well as take the shield of the RCA and solder it onto the shield here. Go ahead and cut the reverse wire and cap it off. You want to make sure you cap this off. Don't just cut it and leave them hanging out, because this wire goes live every time you put the car in reverse. Now the volt 3.9, there's a switch right here, and what that's for is to switch between 9, 6, 5, and 3 3.3 volts. We'll set it for 6. There's 4 wires on this, a blue trigger, a red accessory for power, black ground, and a white-red output to go to our source. On this installation, we're going to twist the red accessory and the blue trigger together because we want to use accessory to trigger this so that it turns on with the car. Now there is an accessory wire up here. We knew from our testing that this red wire was constant 12 volts. We also know that this little tiny yellow black wire here, when we put a voltmeter on it, it goes kind of crazy. Anytime you're testing something like that, that's usually some form of data wire, so just leave that one alone. That leaves us with this green and this white black. Now we know there has to be some kind of ground going up here. The only thing we didn't know is if there was an accessory. So we'll go ahead and we'll tie into these again. We'll grab the green first. We'll put our voltmeter volts, put one test lead to ground because we're testing for positive, and go ahead and turn the car on. When we turn the car on, this one gives us 12 volts. When we turn the car off, it goes away. The other thing you'd want to do too is turn on and off any parking lights or anything like that, because sometimes there's an auto dim feature built into the mirror. You want to make sure that's not what you're probing into. Next, we'll go ahead and grab our ground lead, plug that in. We still get 12 volts. We'll turn it off, we'll turn it on, and we're good. So what we have is the light green wire here is an accessory and the white black is a ground. We'll strip these back and we'll connect in our volt. All right, now for the red white wire, we want to go ahead and cut the black wire. That is our positive 6 volt. And then we're going to go ahead and cap it off on the mirror side of the plug, because that's the side where the power is coming from. So we want to make sure that this doesn't touch anything because we don't want to blow up the mirror. And then we'll go ahead and connect our red white to that black wire. And we'll throw a little bit of solder on it. So this will be connected to the car side because this is where the camera is. Go ahead and put some shrink wrap on it. Now that we've done this, what we want to do is go ahead and test it and make sure that it works. Now we'll go ahead and connect our white red to the 6 volt positive here. Now that we have everything soldered up in place, before we go ahead and add our last layer of insulation to it, what we want to do is go ahead and test it to make sure it works. Now, this should work as soon as we turn on the key because it's being controlled via the accessory as the trigger. So we'll go ahead and plug in our new RCA that we have. And there we go. We have our reverse image. So it's like I was talking about, it is a little bit off center. Here's the hitch here. This would be the center. It should be right about there, but a handle cam, that's what they do. So now this is all good to go and ready. Now, one of the reasons why we wanted to do it this way, he's also going to be adding a front camera to this. So we want to make sure he has the option to view the front camera and the backup camera whenever he wants, just not when he's in reverse, because you might need it some other times. And this radio has the ability to view cameras whenever you want. So we want to make sure that feature is working. So now we're going to go ahead and insulate this back up. Now, Toyota uses the crappy 3M sticky tape, and we want to make sure this looks as factory as possible. So we're going to go ahead and use the same tape that they used instead of using the Tessa tape on the outside. Now we're also going to leave our reverse trigger out just in case we need it for anything else down the road. Tuck it back through the headliner, put our wire cover back on, and we're all set and ready to go. All right, so no matter what kind of vehicle you have, whether it's a nice Toyota like this one, or a Hyundai, or a Ford, or whatever, these are the basic principles you're gonna use in order to retain a factory camera. There are certain cars that you just can't do it like this, like Volkswagen, for example. They don't use a standard coax style camera. They use a red, green, blue camera. Nice thing is Metro makes an adapter for that. Some of the older Chryslers, you need to have a data module in there to wake up the system to say, hey, there's a camera connected. But for Toyotas, you're good. You can do this. And that's what the image looks like on the radio. All right, we hope you guys found this useful. Fernando?
All right, if you like this video, please subscribe, share, like. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
You guys have a great night as always. We'll see you later next time.
Bye.